Hello and welcome once again, and thank you for joining us on another exclusive edition of the Economic Forum Show. Today on the show, we are joined by our economic professor, Professor ABBASS Mohammed EL-KHAMIS Ali. Watch us live and every Tuesday on our Facebook page and YouTube channel at YUSUF TV. Like, share, and leave a comment at the comment section below. Today on the show, we are going to hold discussions on macroeconomic stability. We are going to analyze the president's forecast of 5% of Ghana CEDI's depreciation and its implications for Ghana's economy. Stay tuned and also contribute by leaving a comment on the show. Professor, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thanks leaders for continuing to join us on Economic Forum.
Yeah. Professor, today we are going to talk about macroeconomic stability, and basically we are going to analyze the president's forecast of 5% depreciation of the Ghana cedi and its implications on Ghana's economy. First of all, we talk about macroeconomic stability. For the benefit of our viewers, what does it mean literally?
That's a very good question. Yeah, you hear the term macroeconomic stability quite a lot, and you wonder what goes into that terminology or that statement or frames that we tend to use. So when we talk about macroeconomic stability, basically we're looking at the economic equilibrium where we're looking at some key indicators such as inflation, your exchange rate, your interest rate, and economic growth overall. And the question you ask is whether they're stable or sustainable. So any one of these indicators, such as inflation or exchange rate, which brought this topic, should be stable. All right, so that's what we call macroeconomic stability. The reason why that is important or crucial is because that's what will attract investment.
Okay.
All right, by foreign, direct investment, economic growth, and improving the living standards. Why? Because if an indicator like exchange rate is not stable, what it leads is the uncertainty in the market. All right, it leads to everybody trying to hold on to their advantages. Say if the dollar CD ratio is not stable, one day is $1 to $12, tomorrow is $1 to $14, then the next day is $1 to $10. How do you expect businesses to plan? And each time, even as consumers, our lives are not, you can make informed decisions. All right, economics is about all citizens being able to make informed decisions about prices, because all of that instability in the forex is going to translate into prices. So if you are planning to spend your life, let's say you plan to spend $5,000 a week, based on current exchange rate of $1 to 12 cedi, and tomorrow you wake up, the exchange rate has deteriorated to $1 to $16. If yesterday your purchasing power of $5,000 was, maybe 10 pieces of something that you intended to spend $5,000 on, now today it's gone to like 8 pieces of the same good because of the change in exchange rate. So even as citizens, our lives are not, improved or will not be improved when cities are changing left, right, and center. So we need a stable city for us to plan our lives, maintain our purchasing power, and for businesses to be able to make well-informed decisions about how much I need before I can import something. All right? So all of this will matter. So in the context of Ghana, achieving a macroeconomic stability involves managing your fiscal discipline, controlling your inflation, maintaining a stable currency, and promoting a private sector growth. So that's what macroeconomic stability actually means.
Thank you very much. Professor, the president has projected a 5% depreciation in the Ghana cedi. From an academic and economic standpoint, is this realistic?
Okay, so let's look at a little background of why he's projecting a 5%. If you look at it, it's because IMF has projected that Ghana's macroeconomic outlook will stay stable with a growth rate of about 4% in 2025. All right, which has given the forecast and current economic environment of a depreciation of a city of a 5%. To be something of a realistic, because if you're growing at 4%, and we're saying that with the current trajectory, if we're going to grow at 4%, that means it will translate into a depreciation of 5%. Considering the history of the currency volatility that we have and the ongoing effort to restore fiscal, sanity, I would say it's possible. But what I'm assuming is that he's probably thinking, with the consultation of Bank of Ghana, that there has to be a fiscal consolidation, which means they have to reduce the fiscal deficit and improve the revenue generation. So if they're able to do that with a growth rate projected at 4%, then it is likely that we will achieve a 5% depreciation. All right. So from where we started at some, $1 to 14, and achieving a 5% will translate into a 5% depreciation, will translate into something like $1 to 10. All right, 10 cedi, which is reasonable within the range that he's anticipating. And another reason why I think that is probably possible is because of their monetary policy to control inflation and stabilize the currency. So that means their policy is austerity measures, not to overspend in the economy, and making sure that they hold themselves accountable exactly to what they're spending, and that revenue mobilization is improved. These are the parameters within this monetary policy is operating. And then the injection of foreign currency, foreign reserve into the forex market. So now what we've seen is that the government is pulling out from the intervention in the economy of the foreign reserves, but it has to be some at levels of intervention that's reasonable. So given maybe the information that he has from Bank of Ghana and what they actually intend to do, a 5% will not be far-fetched. And you also have to factor in the global trends, because all of these prediction can only hold through if we're able to have a stable global oil prices, as well as managing our debt. So once you put all these factors together, then you can say that a 5% achievement of a depreciation is likely, which translates to $1 to CEDI ratio of about 11% or 12%, worst case scenario. So I think that's doable, given the fact that we have a lot of reserves. And if we want to keep $1 to 14 CEDI, or $1 to say 10 or 9, we can still achieve that if we want with the injection of the foreign currency. But it's not sustainable when you are holding the economy by intervention. You want to allow demand and supply to play a part in determining where we go from here. But what is important is the forecast should translate into a sustainable growth, which means this achievement must be maintained through other processes that we're going to talk about as your questions unfold.
Yeah. Professor, according to the recent Bloomberg report, the Ghana cedi happens to be now the worst performing currency in the world. And the cedi sort of appreciated a little bit, or sort of depreciated, because it went from 10 to 12.0, I think, in the last 2 or 3 weeks ago. What underlying assumptions do you think have informed this projection?
Underlying assumption is what I was alluding to when I said there has been significant injection of forex or foreign dollars into the system, to be specific. Why? Because if you look on the other side, we had a gold board that's doing a good job of ensuring that all the gold sold are at premium prices. So we have a lot of foreign reserves coming in. And then we use that foreign reserves to kind of interfere in the market by ensuring that the dollars are available. Because the exchange rate is simply a relationship between demand and supply that determines the price of a dollar. So if the demand and supply of a dollar coming from our levels of import indicates that the demand is rising, with our supply of foreign reserves, we are meeting demand where it needs to be, which means that the dollar prices cannot go any higher as long as we intervene in the economy. So if we intervene in the economy, that approach, any intervention by a government in the market system is never sustainable. It's always a short-term approach. It's not meant to be a long-term approach. Yes, you need it to get the economy back on track, which is what we need to do. And the next phase is that sustainable? Can you keep going at that rate? And the answer is no for any economy, which is why we are experiencing the reversal of our gains. So we are trying to find a sustainable approach of, say, a 5% depreciation, as alluded by the president, where it's sustainable, where everybody will assume that this is the current rate. Maybe $1 to 11 cedi or $1 to 10 cedi. All right. Okay. So if that is a rate that we feel is sustainable for businesses to thrive, then it allows everybody to make a well-informed decision. Because we don't want a situation where we dependent on Bank of Ghana to be the determinant of our exchange rate. That means they're having too much control in the system. And that's why the IMF advised them to start pulling out. And now the reality is setting in. So that's not necessarily a bad thing if instead of using the dollars, the Forex dollars, into the exchange rate, why don't we use it to diversify the economy? Use the money and start projects. So you can have actually a trickle-down impact on the economy rather than the Forex. Because the Forex is just one aspect of the economy that you are helping, but there's no growth there. Because we don't grow when we're only importing goods. The only benefit we're going to get is reduced inflation, right? Because our city has appreciated. But that's not growth. The growth will only come when we structurally grow.
Yeah, Professor, I would like to chip in with this question. When you mentioned about inflation, if this forecast materializes, what would be the likely impact on inflation, especially on goods that are heavily dependent on imports?
All right, the likelihood of that is that it will put pressure on prices. All right, it will. So the inflation that we've seen of about 11.5% in August, all right, which is a great achievement as a result of the foreign exchange rate appreciation, now is going to suffer, right? So we're going to settle at a real inflation rate, maybe at 10%. So the inflation is going to go up a little bit. That's why we need to be stable at some point to know exactly what level of intervention is needed by the Bank of Ghana. All right. Is it a 10% inflation that we're targeting? All right. So we can target. That's why I want us to go beyond the monetary policy, because the disconnect between our monetary policy and economic growth is where I get worried in Ghana. Because in Ghana, we have disassociated our monetary policy and long-term growth. So you are here trying to hold the dollar to a value that is unsustainable, because that approach that we took in when we intervened is unsustainable for the economy. So now that we're pulling out, the question is, where are we going to be able to affect inflation? Because now inflation is going to go up a little bit. All right. So $1 to 10 cedi is going to translate to something about 15% inflation, something like that. So if it's something to 15% inflation, then how can you push inflation even further? Is to use your reserves instead of infusing the reserves into the forex exchange market. Why don't you translate it into economic growth activity, such as industrializing? And what that actually do is you produce your goods that is going to limit the levels of import, which means it would take the demand for dollars down. All right. If it takes the demand for dollars down, then the cedi will appreciate naturally. We want a natural growth of the appreciation of the cedi.
Okay.
Not an artificial growth. because everything we did with Bank of Ghana was an artificial intervention. That's not how economics works. Economics works when structurally we do something about import. All right, so if we really want to affect inflation, then solve the import problem. Let's find some key commodities, especially around the things that we spend money on, food. All right, the basic necessities. So if we can replace the basic necessities, replace import of the basic necessities locally, then you're reducing pressure on inflation, because then you're able to produce at a cheaper prices than you could have imported. And when you do that, inflation naturally comes down. And not only that, guess what? Your economic growth then begins to move, because these industries are going to employ the youth or whoever wants to work. And then unemployment appreciates, income rises. Income rises, aggregate demand increases. Aggregate demand increases, economic growth happens because GDP will grow. That's why I said we have to find a way to connect between our monetary policy. We need to establish a connection between the monetary policy and economic growth. The two have to go hand in hand, because in the US here, everything we try to do is to use the monetary policy that would translate into economic growth, reduce unemployment, and maintain inflation at an appreciable level of not more than 4%. All right, so this is the target, actually 2%, employment 4%. So this is the target that we have. So in Ghana, what is our target? Because if we're going to end up with a 12% inflation, what are we targeting? Are we targeting a 10% inflation? If it's a 10% inflation, how do we achieve that? Because just intervention in the market alone is not going to get us there. Then we have to go beyond the intervention in the market with the infusion of foreign reserves and allow the economy naturally to grow.
Yeah. Professor, thank you very much. Professor, let's talk about balance of trade and overall investor confidence. How might this depreciation affect Ghana's overall balance of trade?
When we have depreciation, what usually happens is that it makes our exports more competitive, because we need more dollars now. Okay, we get more dollars for our export. That's what I mean. We get more dollars for our export. We use the cities to, produce, and then we get more dollars for our export. So it makes us more competitive, potentially improving the balance of trade. But the problem is, as you're doing that, it could also lead to a decrease in investor confidence, because if I'm an investor and I'm coming to Ghana, I'm looking at, like, say, the Ghanaians. This is the reason why the remittances went down, according to the government, the president's response. The remittances went down because of the over appreciation of the city, right? So that went down. The reverse can also happen, where the investor confidence is not assured. So they seek, investors will find a way in an economy that is not depreciating. All right, so you need to have the stability, because the stability sends a signal to investor that for the next 2 to 3 years, should I work with this economy, my return or my investment is not going to depreciate. Because if I'm investing, for example, I'm bringing $200 million to invest in Ghana, I'm anticipating, all right, a return of, say, 10% in profit.
Yeah.
Okay? And then depreciation happens. What is happening now? I'm not sure how that is going to affect the purchasing power of the people in the economy, and that will translate into my profitability. And so that's a risky trend to have. But if you sustain it, everybody gets information about what the economy is going to give them in terms of return on investment. And then they would like to work with an assured number rather than uncertainty in the economy. So no investor wants to work with uncertainty. That's basically what depreciation is going to lead to. But if we sustain it for the next, 2 years, we are at a rate of 1 CEDI to like 10 or 12, and that's where we are, then that's exactly what it is. You either come in and invest knowing that every dollar you bring in is equivalent to $10, 10 CEDI, and that's it. And you shouldn't expect any, crazy change or significant change, drop or rise of your dollars in the economy. That is what an investor wants. Yes.
Yeah, but Professor, looking at the nature of our economy and the nature of the city, you made a valid point that when the investor isn't certain of the performance of the city, it also reduces the investor's confidence. But can such a depreciation be seen as manageable within a broader framework of macroeconomic stability?
So far, a 5% depreciation as proposed or as predicted by the president, I think if it's accompanied by sound economic policies, can be manageable.
Okay.
What do I mean by that? They continue to have a fiscal discipline, but what is interesting with where we are as a nation is we're having a fiscal discipline based on, all right, austerity measures so far. Okay, we haven't embarked on the major projects yet. So we look very disciplined right now because we're not overspending and we're spending a little bit on some key initiatives. But if we should really resolve the macroeconomic issues in the economy, beginning with key infrastructures, then our spending will have to be, improved. It has to be more than what it is right now.
Yeah.
Okay? So we need that to happen. All right? But then we need the fiscal discipline at the same time. So the question is, how do you balance the two? How do you move forward significantly without hurting yourself? And that's what the dilemma is for the Ministry of Finance and Bank of Ghana. Because for any depreciation such as the one we are proposing or discussing right now to be manageable, you will need to have the fiscal discipline as well as the monetary policy tightening that we have, which is not overspending. But then the catch-22 is you need to spend in order for the economy to move forward greatly.
Yeah.
So where we are is we're not spending. Yes, we look good on the books, which is what brings me back to the IMF dilemma. Because this is what IMF wants to see.
Yeah.
They want us to see a book that looks good, like what we're giving them right now. But we as a nation, as people, know that we're too far away from getting close to what we're trying to get to. The economy has not changed significantly. There are no jobs. The same situation is still here. The only thing we have to show for is inflation that has come down. Other than that, there's no significant economic growth that anybody can show us.
Yeah.
So we're not going anywhere. Yes, we have we have come down on corruption to certain levels, right? Because we're now overspending. The challenge is when you begin to spend, how are you going to continue the monetary policy or tightening if you need to loosen up for the economy to go forward? Because when we say monetary policy tightening that's needed to maintain the 5%, that means you have to not increase money supply. But we need to increase money supply at a certain stage to move the aggregate demand forward. Meaning we have to reduce interest rate to allow businesses and individuals to borrow and spend on the economy to move the economy forward. And we're not doing that. Under the guidance of IMF, we are asked to maintain a monetary policy tightening, which involves leaving the interest rate at a high level. Which economy can move forward at an interest rate of more than 20%? No economy can go anywhere. So that's the dilemma. Do we satisfy our financiers, which is the IMF in this case? We're doing a good job making them happy because we're listening to them. But then what about the Ghanaian? When can we begin moving the economy to benefit the Ghanaian. All right. But then we also have to ensure that the depreciation does not also lead to instability. All right. Because if we don't maintain an appreciable, that's why I say, what are the targets here? Because the investor, he needs to know that, oh, this economy runs on this kind of exchange rate, $1 to say 10 cedi or $1 to 12 cedi, and that's sustainable. So depreciation itself has to be manageable, not to undermine the economy as well as the investor confidence.
Professor, thank you very much for that point. But a follow-up question here: what policy tools should the government policy tools should government prioritize to ensure the depreciation does not spiral into instability? Because you ended your point with we should ensure that it does not spiral into instability.
Yes. So number one is the fiscal discipline. All right, reducing the budget deficit and improving the revenue collection. Okay, so that's very important. And then maintaining, tight monetary policy to control inflation. So knowing when do we have to increase interest rate or reduce interest rate. All right, and then intervention in the market. We need to do that strategically or sparingly to ensure that we don't overperform or we don't over-infuse into the forex to not lead to inflation, right? And then finally, what we really need to do when it comes to stability is structural reforms. So move or connect the dot from monetary policy to structural reforms, implementing reforms to improve the business environment and promoting the private sector growth. Okay. So if we have reserves like we are enjoying right now, why can't we translate that into structural reforms? And that's what we need to do.
Excellent. Professor, historically, Ghana has faced sharp periods of sharp currency volatility. What lessons can we apply now to keep the forecast within control?
Yes, I think I had mentioned them earlier, is to be able to diversify our export, which is number one, so we can reduce the dependence on some key exports such as cocoa, gold and oil. These are all our key exports to mitigate the external shocks, because when we don't diversify, then we are at the vulnerability of foreign prices or world prices. But if we can diversify the export and add value to these productions, then we're able to have some leverage on the prices. Okay, so that's very important that we look at that. That's the structural reform that I'm talking about. So if structurally we are not, strategic about how we're gonna diversify the export, so we can actually increase the revenue from export against the spending on imports. So on the trade balance part of the GDP, we can have a positive trade balance, because export is greater than import. So if we can diversify the economy to achieve that level of a positive or surplus on the trade balance, then that will give us the buffer for our vulnerabilities, okay, in the currency market. The second one is to have the fiscal discipline that I'm talking about, so we can reduce the pressure on the currency, okay? So that's very important. What we've done so far seems to be working. So we can continue to do that at some levels, okay, with the fiscal discipline that we've shown so far. Now overspending where we shouldn't need to spend, and making sure that every dollar is translated into a service or a good, all right, that we can show. Okay, we have instances of situations where dollars are taken out and nothing was shown for it. So that's messing up the market. So we need to be able to be disciplined around that. So systems, institutions needs to be looked at. Then we also have to finally continue enhancing our monetary policy. So far, we've done a good job in controlling inflation and stabilizing the currency up to this point. So we have to continue to look at that, but we have to go beyond that and take the gains into serious economic growth.
Professor, how should the average Ghanaian or the ordinary Ghanaian prepare financially if this depreciation trend unfolds?
I think we have to, for any consumer or individuals or a citizen, all right, in economics, other than doing the things that I mentioned, which is typically what every nation does, what is important is for our leaders to give us the consumer confidence in terms of the exchange rate. All right, because if we can't manage our feelings of the economy, then we cannot help the consumer to make a decision. So I applaud the president for coming out and talking about these issues, and I will expect a lot more to be done between Ministry of Finance and the governor of the Bank of Ghana. Because if you look at the U.S. economy, what the Federal Reserve does is to allow the citizens be able to predictively manage their finances by the way they manage the economy. So and these people are not only sitting in Washington where the office is. We have local offices in all the states, the key states, about 12 districts. So in these 12 districts, there are offices that have been decentralized to come to almost every big city that you can mention in the US. What are they doing? They're collecting consumer business sentiments about the economy in order to be able to make policies that translate back to the consumer or the business. So what we get from those activities is we are assured of a sustainable, all right, prices or stable prices or inflation levels. So I think we need a system like that where we are not disconnected. The consumer in Ghana shouldn't be disconnected about what the governor or the Ministry of Finance is trying to achieve as far as inflation is concerned. So if we are at 11.5%, what is our target? So the government needs to be able to tell us that, okay, we should anticipate a 12% year per annum inflation. And that we're going to work so hard to achieve that up to the end of the year. And this has to be across all our initiatives, all our activities, and all our communication. So what it helps is that it helps the consumer be able to know, okay, inflation is at 12%. From now to 12%, it's only 0.5% I'm anticipating. So that means I can keep my spending. If it's at this point, I can keep it like this all the way to the end of the year. Nothing will change because the value of my purchasing power is still the same value. If it's a business, they know what they're dealing with. All right. So we don't need, the swings in the inflation or the forex exchange market. We don't need that. We need stability. When you have stability, it allows for the consumer to be able to determine. Because if your paycheck is 5,000 Ghana, you need to be sure that 5,000 Ghana at this current rate of inflation of 11.5% can be able to do these three ABC. And that worst case scenario, I will still be able to do ABC. But you don't want a situation where your 5,000 Ghana city is only going to be able to do A and B when you wake up tomorrow. All right. So we need to set realistic targets. And that's where the communication needs to. We have to be clear as people, what is our strategy to maintain inflation and to what level are we targeting? And that's how you build the consumer confidence. So individuals can plan their finances, businesses can plan their investment decisions, and everybody will be aware of where we're going as people.
Yeah.
Um,
And of course, the Bank of Ghana recently announced that the citizens should avoid using the US dollar as a medium of transaction within the country. This has been a challenge for all the governments, and I think this is a good initiative or a good step towards maintaining the Ghana cedi. Professor, what social or political consequences might follow if the cedi weakens beyond the projected 5%?
if it depreciates beyond, then we suffer the the downturn of investor confidence and investment. So our economy is not going to be attractive. People will look elsewhere to invest. So that's number one. Prices are going to rise. Okay, and that's going to put a burden on our standard of living. Because if prices are going to rise as a result of improved cedi over dollar, then prices are going to be adjusted upwards. Imports are going to be very expensive. And when that happens, it's going to lead to a situation where, we're not going to be able to enjoy the things that we are enjoying. Lives are going to be very difficult. So that is something we have to watch out for. All right. So that is why we are, in a critical stage where we need to maintain stability in order for us to move forward and make decisions of diversifying the economy. So it's not going to do well for the economy should this trend continues. All right. So you need a lot of dollars to get a cedi, and that's not favorable. A lot of cedis to get a dollar, that's not favorable to any economy. Because stability is what breeds confidence. Because it allows businesses to make decisions, and it makes your economy very attractive. Because an example that comes to mind is I've traveled to UAE, specifically Dubai, within the last 10 years, or should I say 5 to 10 years. Their exchange rate have been stable, almost the same level, $1 to 4 UAE currency. All right, and that has been the stable rise and fall plus 2 point, is 0.2 to 0.5 rise and fall, because you can never have it at one level, right? It goes up and down, but that fall is what you anticipate. So as a business person, when I'm going to make my purchases in Dubai, I know exactly how much I need to get what I want, because I'm converting the dollars I'm taking to Dubai, multiply by 4, and nothing less. So it makes you be able to know exactly how much investment you have to do with that country because of the stability in the currency. And we have to be able to speak to Ghana like that. Should I decide to invest in Ghana, how much do I need in dollars to start the business? If I'm doing the calculation today, by the time I get to the market in 3 months, if now it's $1 to 12 cedi, by the time I get to the market, let's say in 5 months, I'm planning right now. Let's say I'm planning. In 5 months, I'm coming down to invest in Ghana. I'm starting planning at $1 to 12 cedi. Can I confidently say whatever I have calculated, projected to spend in Ghana is still going to be the same dollar value when I come to Ghana if cedi is not stable? No. What if cedi continues to depreciate? I will probably be in the gain if cedi depreciates, or if it overperforms, I will lose my investment money. Because if I'm thinking of taking $50,000 and it overperforms, now my $50,000 is worth less in Ghana than I started doing the calculation. So it doesn't help anyone. All right. So the countries that you've seen people going in to do business with are countries that have maintained stability. It doesn't matter where you are, just keep it stable. All right. But you have to keep it at a level that represents your economic growth. Because realistically, you can't tell me that we are $1 to, less than 10 Ghana cedi economy. We're not there yet. We can achieve a $1-to-4 ratio with economic growth, just like what UAE did. They diversified the economy. They spend quite a lot on tourism. And that's why they're able to perform against dollar like that. But we have nothing to show for our performance. And we can't ask Bank of Ghana to intervene forever. So that's why we have to go back structurally and do the work. So we can push the cedi up against dollar, even up to 5 cedi to $1. I wouldn't be surprised, because we can do it. Dubai has done it, and they at $4 Dubai cedi to $1. So why can't we do it? There's nothing stopping us, but it has to be structural. It's not superficial. You can be doing economics like that. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Professor, how do external factors such as global oil prices and the US interest rates affect the forecast of the cedi?
All right, so if you look at the oil prices, fluctuation that affects is the export that we have in oil. If the prices are not stable, then you definitely do not know what your foreign reserves is going to look like. All right, and we depend on these foreign reserves to actually hold the dollar at the level where it is. All right, so if there is instability in prices, in oil prices, it doesn't help. Because on the same token, what about the final oil products that we bring in for consumption? What if the prices are rising? It's going to cost us a lot more money. That means we need more dollars to be able to buy the finished product, the end products of oil products. So these are the reasons why we need to diversify to be able to, manage the instability in prices when it comes to oil. As far as interest rate is concerned in the US, it's simply a case of how it affects your investor sentiment, influencing the cities, right? So when interest rate in the US rises, what happens is that investment in US becomes more attractive than investment in Ghana. Because if I'm promised to gain, let's say, some 12% in the US economy with my money, you think I'll bring it to Ghana? It doesn't make Ghana attractive because of our instability and the poor management of our economy until now. So you don't become attractive option, because you have to understand that the business, the investor is looking at a stable environment, economic environment, where its investment is secured and guaranteed. So if you're going to look at the two economy, if US real interest rate is high, then everybody will move to US, because they're sure of what they're going to get from their investment. So that's how it affects everything. So we have to understand that it's not going to do well for our economy. But the question is, why can't you have an economy that can limit the external factor impact on your economy? Because we can't control what US is going to do. We can't control oil prices, because that's why it's called external factors. They are beyond your control. US economy is looking at their economy and making decisions that only helps the citizens. So if they're increasing their interest rate, that's their gain, not yours. But you as a Ghanaian economy needs to have your own strategy. And that's why we have to structurally be ready to change the economy and not depend on external factors. So that's where we are.
Thank you very much. Professor, what sectors of the Ghanaian economy stand to benefit the most from this level of depreciation, and which ones will suffer the most?
The sectors that the depreciation right now is going to help the export, right? That's one sector that we're going to look at. Because if we are experiencing depreciation, is going to encourage investors or exporters to be able to use less cedi, all right, to get dollars, which means they will be able to import more at a very reasonable rate compared to before, when they have to, you know, give up a lot of dollars in order to, a lot of city in order to get dollars. So that's going to help those exporting sector. And then another sector you're going to think about is any business that depends on purchases from abroad is also going to gain into, you know, those areas that is going to improve the economy. So we have to really look at strategizing in a way that this rise and fall is stable, in the sense that even when we are importing goods, that requires us to exchange dollars in order to import it. It's not a significant city that needs to go into coughing up before we can import dollars. So it makes for all businesses to be able to make an informed decision across board.
Yeah.
So we need to ensure that we can achieve a stable level of exchange rate where everybody will be able to make decisions that it's not hurting one side of the economy or the other side of the economy. So that's what stability will bring, and that's why it's very, very important that we are pursuing those, you know, initiative of stability where everybody is benefiting.
Yeah. Yeah. Professor, you have really indicated or stressed on how both the Ghanaian citizen and our foreign investors rely on the stability of our economy and our city to make their final decision. Now, what indicators should the Ghanaian citizen watch closely in order to, in the coming months, to gauge whether the economy is truly on a stable path or not? What indications should the Ghanaian citizen watch or monitor in order to know this?
I think with the way Ghana is run at this point, I would say the exchange rate is still something we should look at, and if we can make it stable, it will help us with our decision making. And then the interest rate. These are two indicators that we have, because our monetary policy is always, you know, the impact of the foreign exchange, because import is still a significant player in our economy. So if import is still a significant player in our economy, then each time, you know, we have to import something, we want to know how much dollars do we need to exchange in order to get dollars. Okay.
Yeah.
So if it's depreciating, that means we need a lot more dollars to be able to import. And if that's the relationship, then we should anticipate that if CEDI is not, you know, controlled at the 5% level that we are anticipating, and it goes beyond 5%, that means we are exceeding somewhere around 12% or 13% to a dollar. And that's not going to do well for our economy. So, and that will translate into inflation, and that's what we're trying to avoid here. So as a citizen, I'll be looking at that relationship, how it plays out. Now, let's say that we will trust the president to be able to hold it at 5%. All right. So if he will be able to hold it at 5%, then push come to shove, what we are anticipating is that the dollar shouldn't trade to less than $1 to 12 Ghana cedi. All right. If it does, then we have a problem. Okay. Then the next thing you have to look at as a business or investor, or even a Ghanaian citizen, is to look at the monetary policy side of things. At what point do we anticipate the interest rate to go a little bit down to allow us to be able to do business activities? Right now, is the last time I checked, I think it's over 20%, something around, you know, 40% or something. I think it's coming down. But if the interest rate is still double digits, how is that business friendly? So if I'm a business, I'll be looking at that, these two indicators. All right. These are the two indicators that we have so far that we have to look at to see where we're going as a nation, whether it's stable or otherwise. But most importantly, I would have loved to look at the GDP numbers. But because there's a disconnect between our monetary policy and the growth of the GDP, I don't anticipate a significant growth in GDP. Maybe we'll keep the 4% that is projected by IMF, because it looks like they are the guiding principle of how we manage our economy, and we want to stay there. So you won't see anything exciting about what is it that we're going to do unless we really want to break the bondage and start serious activities. That will grow us more than 4%, which I think we have the capacity, we have the potential to do. So I'm looking at a situation where if these two indicators are managed well, and then we're able to add serious economic growth, then I will see the Ghanaian citizens' life improving from where we are today to a better position.
Yeah. Professor, thank you very much. It has been a really insightful and educative program so far. We really do appreciate your insightful, your valuable insights. Professor, we don't have much time left, and I would like to speak a little in our Hausa dialect for the benefit of those of us who are watching or our viewers who don't necessarily understand the English discussion. Professor, in summary, how would you summarize this discussion in the Hausa language to our viewers?
Assalamu alaikum masu sauraronmu. Barkanmu da yau, barkanmu da wannan lokaci, kuma muna yi ma Walkiya TV godiya mai dimbin yawa da kullum suke ba mu dama mu tattauna kan tattalin arzikin garinmu ƙasa Ghana. To yau dai mun tattauna kan abin da ya kumshi tambayun da aka yi da shugaba, inda yake cewa zancen abin nan exchange rate, wato kudinmu kan dala yana expect exchange rate mu ya dan fadi kamar 5%, wato kashi 5 cikin 100 kenan ko yake expect da kudinmu ya fadi. Shine muka tattauna kan me zai sa a tabbatar da wannan, ma haka ne ko kuma ba haka bane, to me ya kamata mu duba. To karshe dai tambayan da aka yi shi ya summarize abinda muka tattauna, shine inda ake tambaya cewa to me ya kamata mu lura da shi, kasancewa yanda ake zata kenan. Shine muka ce to abu da za a duba ne, a duba yanzu na muke, in ka za ka juya CEDI kan dala nawa yake. So in kun lura yanzu muna kan kaman 11 ko da abin nan CEDI. So in dai CEDI 11 da dala, to yanzu an ce ya fadi 5%, na muke duban za mu je mu fadi. Shine mu lura da cewa wato a takaice bai wuce kaman $12, CEDI 12 kan sannan samu dala da shi kenan, wato exchange rate 12 to a dollar. To a takaice abinda muka ce a lura da shi, sannan kuma ka lura da farashin kaya cikin economy ya tafiyan wannan yake, to shi zai baka alaman cewa gaskiya abinda suka faɗin nan inda yake kenan. To in ya fi wa'annan karin farashi ba zai wuce inda yake ga da wani abu da yawa ba, ka gane. To in ka ga wani abu haka ya fi abinda muke zata, to wato kenan abinda muka so mu yi, gurin da muka sa gaban nan ba mu cimma guri ba. To da wani ababen da muka tauna, har yanzu dai muna cikin tattaunawa kan tattalin arzikin Ghana. To muna muku godiya da saurara.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor. What is your final submission on that?
So I would say the projected 5% depreciation could be a combination of policy choice and market outcome. And while the government may aim to support exports through slightly weaker currency, market forces such as global trends and investor sentiment will also play a significant role. But our long-term growth and strategy should be having a serious structural reforms where we can diversify our export and improve our economic growth through job growth and serious inflation control.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Dear channel viewers, I think we will end our show on this note. We held discussions on macroeconomic stability. Professor actually had an in-depth analysis of the government, of the president's forecast of 5% depreciation of Ghana cedi and its implication for Ghana's economy. Stay tuned, like, share, and also contribute by leaving a comment at the comment section below. And to be a sponsor or a co-sponsor of this program, do contact any of our administrative members or email on our Facebook page at Walkia TV. I remain a host to Fathom, and we had this discussion with our economic professor, Professor Abbas Mohammed El-KHAMIS Khali. Until next week, I will say it is bye for now.
Assalamu alaikum.